How do job applications work? An overview and guide. So we all know how companies used to post open positions. They would post help wanted signs, listings in the newspaper that they had job openings, and applicants would have to go in and drop off their resume or application, pretty much guaranteeing that a person would be looking through their information. But now, with everything moved towards virtually, a computer is generally qualifying you first. So these sites on the right should look pretty familiar, like Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn. These are all called applicant tracking systems. What is an applicant tracking system? So essentially, it's a one-stop shop for a hiring manager to do all their job functions in one place. So they can post open positions, collect resumes and applications, screen through their applicants, and even do background checks and send offer letters for employment. Another cool feature of applicant tracking systems is predicting employee performance. If they use their ATS to hire someone and that person is successful in their position, they can go back to their tracking system and look for someone with similar skills and experience in the hopes that that person will also be successful in this position. So what does this look like for you when you're applying for a job? So you'll apply online, and if the employer is using an ATS, the ATS will screen 90 to 95% of the applicants based on their resume. Only the top 5 to 10% identified by the ATS will actually be shown to the hiring manager, and from there they would make their selections and call for on-campus interviews or even over the phone interviews. Employers can also integrate an AI interviewing aspect to the hiring process. So again, you would apply online, and rather than 90% of applicants being rejected via the ATS, around 70% would be rejected based on their resume. And then the remaining 30% are invited to interview with an AI. And from there, the AI determines the top 5 to 10% of applicants for that position, and the hiring manager would review those resumes, review those AI interviews, and then reach out for on-campus interviews from there. So again, being pre-qualified by a computer before you ever make it to a hiring manager. And so how does this impact you guys? So with the staggering number of resumes that employers are receiving currently, a lot of them are utilizing an applicant tracking system to qualify applicants. It's cheap for them, it saves time on their side, and they can ensure that every applicant is going through the same process. So just Microsoft and Google alone have reported to have received around 50 to 70,000 resumes in a week. So we just need to shift our focus from a person is going to be reviewing my resume to I need to get through the computer qualifying my resume so I can make it to an actual person. I took this graphic from Glassdoor, and these are pre-pandemic numbers, so it could be even more now. The numbers could have increased a little bit, but on average, a corporate job posting receives about 250 resumes. And of those 250 resumes, if that employer is using an applicant tracking system, 225 would be rejected. Only the top 25 identified by the ATS would be reviewed by the hiring manager for interviews and then potential hiring. So next, I just want to give you some quick tips to help you parse these systems and get to the hiring managers. So first and foremost is looking at Google for templates. So this is what I just found when I searched resume in Google, all of these really nice looking designer templates available to me. But unfortunately, designer templates won't parse an applicant tracking system. So this is what I found just in one article that I read. And the article was saying that the resume on the right with the check mark is the good resume, and the resume on the left with the X is the bad resume, when in reality, it's the complete opposite. The resume on the right would never parse an applicant tracking system. It's far too graphic, and the resume on the left would. So for these systems, they want a really simple format and powerful content. Now, there's a few reasons why the resume on the right would be rejected, and I'll go over them in just a little bit. But first, let's go through a few tips and tricks for you when you're creating your resume. First and foremost is the file format. You always want to export your Word document as a PDF before you're applying for positions online. That is so your formatting and your information doesn't get warped as it is uploaded to these applicant tracking systems. So when you save as a PDF, it freezes your formatting. No one can go in and edit it, and that's why we recommend it. The only downside to PDFs is that if they are overused, like 80 to 100 uses, or if they sit on your desktop for too long, like 3 months with no use, the file can become corrupt. So when you upload it to an applicant tracking system, all the information would come across as jumbled. But there is an easy way to test this. So all you have to do is open your PDF version of your resume, highlight everything in there, copy it, and paste it into a Word document. And if it keeps its formatting, you know your file is good to go. If it does not, you know your file could possibly be corrupted, and you should go back to the Word version of your resume and re-export as a PDF. And if you don't know how to do that, there is a video in our Help Center, which you're in right now watching this video, on how to convert a Word doc to a PDF. Now let's go over those common mistakes that would have got that resume on the right from earlier rejected. First and foremost is graphics. That resume on the right was far too graphic. Any graphic taking up more than 10% of the space on your resume will cause you to be immediately rejected. That is because an applicant tracking system can't read anything in a graphic. So rather than missing out on important information, it just removes you from the process. Another thing to go along with that idea is images of yourself. Any image detected, a headshot, no matter how good you look, will be immediately rejected. That is seen as creating bias within the hiring process, so they just remove you altogether. And then the last area of improvement is columns. And I know columns can be a great space saver, but for these applicant tracking systems, we have to make sure that we are formatting them correctly. On this example you see on your screen, there are no bullet points to separate these two columns together. So when the computer reads it, it would read music, model, assembling, and it wouldn't make any sense. Now, if you use bullet points in here, then that would tell the computer to stop and go to the next skill, and your skills would parse correctly, or in this case, hobbies or interests. So if you're using columns, just make sure you're using some sort of delimiter to separate them, whether it's dashes or bullet points. Just make sure there's something telling the computer to stop and go to the next line in there. Now let's touch on AI interviewing really quickly. This is becoming more and more common in the hiring process. LinkedIn actually just fully integrated with an AI interviewing company to provide their employers that list jobs 3 months of free AI interviewing when they list their jobs on LinkedIn. So let's see how these AI video interviews work. First and foremost, they are set up and evaluated on the same 3 criteria, that being audio, video, and content. And within Quincia, when you take an AI video interview, you will be scored on the same 3 aspects for every question. You're also evaluated on some common data points. So these are the ones that you'll see within Quincia. These are the same data points that employers use to qualify you for certain positions. So we want to show you exactly how you're going to come off before you ever interact with one of these AI interviews. A lot of the data points are very straightforward, like rate of speech, how many filler words you use per minute and throughout the entire interview, how long your answers are, the skills you mention. But then there are some that are more in depth, like enthusiasm and micro expression, where employers are tracking your facial expressions to determine how engaged you are in an interview. So the micro expressions aren't how you feel in the moment as you're answering the questions. It's actually how your face is changing as you tell a story. If you practice too many times or you're really not interested in your story, you're kind of making it up as you go, your face is not going to change, and they will be able to track that in the micro expressions. If you're being genuine and you're really engaged in your interview, then your face is going to have a lot of changes, and that range will be detected in the micro expressions, and it comes off more positive in an interview. So what can you do to be prepared for these AI interviews? Just some basics here. Setup is very, very important. If the computer can't see you, it can't evaluate you fairly. So make sure your computer is set up at a height like you're actually talking to someone. You don't want to be too high or too low where the computer is only seeing your forehead or only seeing your chin, because again, Quinn is tracking those facial expressions. Any AI interview is tracking those facial expressions. So make sure they can see your face straight on. Also, lighting is very important. So that goes within the same idea that if an AI can't see you, it can't evaluate you fairly. So make sure you are in a well-lit space for your AI interviews. Natural light is great, but even if you just use a lamp next to your computer to make sure your face is lit up, that will work too. And then background is also another key thing to have set up in your AI interviews. A messy background can be distracting for an AI. So try to set yourself up against a wall or a blank space. Even if you have a cluttered space and you can't really set yourself up against a wall, you can hang a bed sheet behind you, and that will count as a solid background behind you. Just don't use virtual backgrounds. As you move back in a virtual background, it can cover the edges of your faces, which can result in some low evaluation scores. So avoid virtual backgrounds, but try to find a clean, nice one. You'll also want to look up the way the company dresses before you take an AI interview, because you'll want to dress in accordance to what they do. Are they more business professional? Are they more business casual? Find out and then dress that way for your interview, and it will come across better to the employers. Another way to be prepared is our help center, help.quinsia.io, is full of quick articles to read, quick 30 to 45-second videos on interview tips and tricks. We have the same for resume tips and tricks. So feel free to go to this link, again, help.quinsia.io. There's lots of good information in there for you, either to read, to watch. You're probably already in here watching this video, so feel free to look around and get all this great information. Now that's everything we have to go over. That is how the job applications work. If you have any questions, you can reach out to support@quinsia.io, or you can reach out to me directly at michaela.janacek@quinsia.io, seen on your screen right now. Thank you.